Welcome, everybody. I am Durgesh. Most of you may know me already. And I am the founder of WeLEAP Aerospace Global. This is a non-profit organization aimed to provide high quality STEM mentorship. And our main goal is to um, keep it free of cost and keep it high quality, and specifically for people who who don't have easy access to this information. So of course, targeting all the developing countries, minority and underrepresented groups, but of course it's available for all. So in today's session, we will be working on the STEM resume and CV uh, documents. And this is the second episode of our series on get into top US universities. In the past, we also had another session where we talked about the application process. You can access that through our YouTube channel and also on our LinkedIn page. So today we have four different speakers. First is myself. I'm a postdoc at MIT, and we have Nandita from Virginia Tech. She has done a PhD from there, and she's now working at Amazon Prime. We have Shreya, she is a PhD student at MIT, and we have Akriti, she is a PhD student at Florida State University. So we'll start with a brief speaker introduction. I am currently a full-time software research scientist at Intel Corporation and a research affiliate at MIT Hypersonics Lab. Prior to this, I did my PhD in aerospace engineering from University of Minnesota. And I was focusing on spacecraft re-entry aerothermodynamics. So basically working on all the space missions, like when the spacecraft re-enters or enters into the atmosphere of a planet, how can we design better heat shields? So that was my focus. And I have a master's and bachelor's degree in aerospace engineering from Indian Institute of Technology, Kanpur. Before coming to Intel, I was working as a postdoctoral associate at MIT, but a different lab, which was the gas turbine lab, and I was working on electrified aircraft propulsion. I have also done internships at NASA Ames Research Center in California. And before my PhD, I worked at GE Aviation in Bangalore in two different teams. One was in combustion, and the another one was on thermal system design for aircraft engine. So I hope this gives you a brief, a quick picture of who I am. And now we will listen from other speakers.
Hello, everyone. I'm Nandita, and I'm currently a research scientist at Amazon Primer, and I work with a lot of aerodynamics and aeroacoustics, and that was my focus for my PhD when I was in Virginia Tech, and I actually recently graduated, and I was looking at basically low-speed flows and aeroacoustics. And I did my master's in aerospace engineering from Indian Institute of Science, Bangalore, and my bachelor's also back in India. So I will also be talking a bit about resume CV and how important it is and kind of the differences today. Um,
Hi everyone, I'm Akriti. So I did my bachelor's. I started with my bachelor's in aerospace engineering, and then I did my master's in space engineering and rocketry from India. And after that, I decided to work in the industry for about 3 years. So I worked as an aerodynamics engineer at GE Aviation across 3 or 4 different teams. And then I always wanted to work in research, so I decided to go for my PhD. I quit my job and I started my PhD here at Florida State University. And right now I'm in the final year, so about to finish. And my research is in, so basically I'm working in the mechanical engineering department, but my research is mostly focused on high speed flows and the fluid structure interaction in high speed flows. So yeah, that's about me.
Hi everyone, I am Shreya and I am a first year PhD student at the Laboratory for Aviation and the Environment at MIT Aeroastro. What my lab does is that we do a lot of emissions analysis, or we try to find out all the ways that aviation is affecting the environment and how we can make that better. And I have a master's in aerospace engineering. I majored in aerodynamics from IIT Kanpur. And I also have a BTech in aerospace engineering and applied mechanics from IIST Shibpur. And just before coming here for 2 years, I was a product design engineer at Eaton. I was in the fuel and motion control division. And it was basically, we designed different parts for aircraft like pumps and actuators and valves. And I was also a research intern at IIT Kharagpur during my undergraduate. And yeah, hi again, and I'll help you with the CV.
Thank you all for the introductions. So to all the audience, I am wondering them, you all must be thinking, what is the today's session about? And is it just a generic session on, whatever information is available on the internet? First, we will just give you a brief recap of the basics. What is the purpose of CV and resume, what to include, and what are the good versus bad practices, and show you some examples. And of course, that's necessary to set a foundation. And then the second part of the workshop is to apply what you just learned. So we do have some breakout room activities designed for you. And we ask you to have your CV and resume drafts ready. Even if you don't have it, still be a part of breakout room and see how others are working on their CV and resume. And we do have some like questions, self-reflective exercises, thought experiments, and also like coming up with your action plan, getting feedback from the mentors in the breakout room, and also from the peers. So let's keep going.
Yeah. So so first we will start with basically the definition and the meaning, and just to know that all of us are on the same page with this. So sorry. So it becomes very important if you're in the educational industry, or you're in research or academia, or even out there in the industry. It becomes very important how you present yourself. And one of the most effective means of presentation is on paper, right? Which is sometimes the first thing that a professor or a person you're applying to, an employer, sees. So there are different types. I would say the first important type is a CV, or a curriculum vitae, which is basically, it's a detailed or a comprehensive information about yourself. And basically it includes your educational background, your teaching and research experience, your publications and presentations if you've been in research or academia, and then also your affiliations depending on where and what you're applying into. um, I will show you more examples, and you will also see more along the way. So the purpose of CV is basically to have that one document which has complete information of what you do, and it is generally a long long document, which is at least 2 pages. And I am talking maybe more so about in the STEM field, where you add details about your education background, your affiliations, your publications. And so typically the purpose becomes, when you want to apply into academic positions, or if you're transferring from like a graduate student to a postdoc, or into your PhD, so where your professor or your employer needs more highlighted information and detailed information about what you have done. The length, typically it grows with experience. There's no hard and fast rule that it has to be at least 2 pages or 3 pages. There's no hard and fast rule, but what I'm stating here are typical values. And of course you need to acknowledge that it grows with experience. You don't have to make up stuff to make it longer. Just be honest and truthful. But we'll see more examples as we go. So yeah, so it need not be what this person is doing here. You don't have to start with it all started when I was born, but it is basically, uh, um, we'll see ahead. It's basically a comprehensive, but and a detailed information. Now coming to a resume. Now the reason we wanted to differentiate these two is because, for me at least, when I came from India, I did not know very clearly the distinction between the two. And it was only when I had to apply for positions and apply for a PhD that I had to understand the difference and how to refine these two in two different ways. So when it comes to a resume is generally a shorter, especially in the US, it is generally a shorter version of your CV. And it again highlights the same things. It highlights your educational background, it highlights your skills, your experiences, but the purpose becomes slightly different. It is usually catered towards a more direct or a more narrow area. For instance, if you're typically applying for industry positions and specific positions, you can again tailor and cater your resume to do those. And like I mentioned, it doesn't mean you cut out everything. It just means you're making it more to the point. And so typically the length of this is one to 2 pages, and it is very action oriented, and it has to be a bit more stronger, because this is you have to imagine that this is that one person who reads it wants every information in that one page, and you want to tell your whole story in that without missing out the important details. um, could you enter one more? Yeah, so this is just to basically give you an idea. So you will notice that the points I have here will be the same for resume and CV. So what I want to emphasize is that there is no hard and fast rule. You can cater it, and you can like edit and modify it depending on what you're applying to, where you're applying to. But what I want you to notice here is how detailed each of these topics are here. For instance, if you start with, typically for instance, here you can see you start with your contact and then a brief summary about yourself. You can add an objective. Again, like I mentioned, every point here is not hard and fast rule to have it here, but it is good practice to basically lay out and have your information laid out in an orderly fashion. And you can see here how there's an example CV that I took from online resources. But essentially you can see how each doctoral research or undergrad research is highlighted, and they're all bulleted in a detailed manner. So the idea and the purpose is that the person is usually someone who's interested in a very comprehensive detail about your research and your work that you've done. So if you could go ahead to the next page. Yeah, this is just a continuation and an example just to show how long it can be for people. And don't hesitate it to be whatever length it is. It need not be 3 pages, like I said. It can also be like 1 page or 1.5 pages. But the idea is basically to highlight whatever you've done. And this is example of the order that you can go to. And usually you end that with professional associations or affiliations that you have, and it is typically people and professors that you've worked with, or employees that you've worked with.
Yeah, and I would also like to add, like, these examples are really good. They're very readable. And like all the information, the margins, the font size, and the spacing are chosen in a way that even though there is a lot of information, it doesn't feel that like that. Like, for example, if you see the teaching experience, they have written a lot of stuff there, but it's readable. So that's one of the key factor as well.
I'd like to mention an interesting thing. This is one of my seniors' resume. Yeah,
So
and
these
started
are
looking at
real.
the details, and everything seemed to be very. So he has worked under my advisor. So I was wondering who is this person, and then so this
Yeah.
is his resume.
Yeah, I found this to be very apt to what I wanted to say and explain, because all these information that you shared become, it is very similar what you shared like at least the at least the titles or section
Mhm.
titles are pretty similar when it comes to resume and CV and whatever you want to present. But how you present each section becomes different, because the reader on the other side, it depends on that person if they want a more detailed highlight, detailed version or just highlights.
Yeah.
So if you go on to the resume, you will see that it, like, the titles are again very similar, but now you see that the person basically filters out, and also changes the language to be more action oriented, more to the point, if that makes sense. And so the whole story is now shortened, and basically, cater to just that one position that you want to apply to, or that one person that you want to send it to. So yeah, so this is a very, very broad, way to differentiate between a CV and a resume. But also keep in mind, depending on where you apply, what to apply. I know PhD students, and in fact also, I preferred a version that was somewhere between a CV and a resume, something that was not very long, but at the same time I could explain whatever, information that I wanted to give, even for industries that was helpful to me. So there are different versions, but when we clear cut talk about CV and resume, these are the major differences, that we see.
Okay, so I'll take it over from here. So now that Nandita mentioned a lot of details about the differences between a CV and a resume, I will mostly focus on the important points to note about a resume when you start building a resume, and also the differences between a good and a bad resume. So resume is basically a marketing document, because the person you're, like, for example, if you're applying for a master's or a PhD position, the person doesn't know you personally, nor has he or she worked with you in the past. So they don't know about your research abilities, or about like anything about your career. So it is a document, it is like a short, concise document. Like she mentioned, it should be 1 or 2 pages long at max, where you're supposed to market your skills in the best possible way. You have to be concise, and at the same time you have to showcase your abilities in the best possible way. So the first thing which I would like to mention is you are supposed to be descriptive. So for example, let's say you worked on a project, so you just don't give the title of the project and that's it. You are supposed to give the details of what you worked on, and the results that you obtained, and how those results were relevant to your research. For example, if you got, like in my case, I was working on the drag reduction of an afterbody of a missile. So I obtained a drag reduction with my technique that I used. I obtained a drag reduction of about 5%. So you're supposed to mention numbers, because that helps quite a lot. It gives a confidence to the reader that whatever you worked on, you achieved some results through that. So you have to be descriptive, but in about a couple of sentences, not too long. The second point which I would like to mention is you have to be relevant. You have to talk about relevant things. For example, let's say if you worked on a project in high school which is not relevant to the position that you're applying for, or masters or PhD. If it is not relevant, then it doesn't make sense to include such things. So just in order to make the document big, don't include things that are not relevant. Resume is all about mentioning the things that are relevant and to the point, and bringing the best of your abilities. And the next point would be to tailor your resume for the specific job. So like Nandita mentioned, CV is a document where you mention everything. But for resume, the main thing is you have to tailor it for a specific job. For example, the keywords that are asked, that are mentioned in the job description. Or for example, if you're applying for a master's or PhD position, so whatever that professor is working on, you have to mention those keywords, and how, for example, if they worked on some, working on some specific research topic, you need to mention that those keywords, and then how you have worked on that in the past. So that is very important. Showcase that you have experience in the field that you're applying for. Even if you don't have an experience, you can mention things that you have done related to that specific position that you're applying for. So it is just like best showcasing your abilities and showing your skills that you have. And the most important point is that it has limited real estate, so you're not supposed to waste any space, because most of the resumes generally at the master's level try to make it 1 page long. For example, in my case, my resume was about 3 pages long, so that was too long, so I had to cut it short to 2 pages. I cannot reduce it below that because I have publications, so that need their own space. But depending on the industry you apply, for example, generally in industries, they don't focus a lot on the publications. So then in that case, you need not include your publications. So depending on, that's what I mean about tailoring your resume for the specific job. If you're applying to academia, then you need to include your publications or the projects that you worked on related to academia. If you're applying to the industry, then you don't necessarily need to include things that are not relevant. Mm-hmm. And it is very important to proofread your resume and get it proofread by other people, because since you are the one working on the document for a long time, there might be things that you might miss even after reading it 10 times. So it's better to get it read by a friend or anybody that is available and is willing to help you, so that they can offer their advice on improving it. And it is very important to include that there are no to make sure that there are no typos, because that shows that you are not very serious about if you're not serious about this 1-page document, then obviously it gives a bad impression to the professor or to the whoever is looking at your resume in the industry. So for masters and PhD students, an important point is including a list of your previous projects, workshops or conferences that you have participated in, papers published. Or if you don't have any of these, then just include examples of where like situations where you showcased teamwork and wherever you had positions of responsibilities. For example, if you worked in any club in the university, that would also help. So these are the most important points to note about a general resume.
Okay, thanks, Akriti. Before we move forward, I think Anita has something to say, so we will take a quick break here. And Anita, go ahead.
Okay.
Anita, do you have a question?
A comment, if
Yeah.
I may. In Europe, we have a little bit different standards, because you may think about, okay, I am educated US, but maybe I want to move to Europe for the job. And what I see as a common trend is, especially if you talk about resumes, is that there is strong, in a way, impact of resume if you want to make and you want it. To put actually methodologies, so actually methods you have learned. And is that engineering or is that biology? I'm myself biologist, but that's what I see. So a lot of actually, it doesn't matter if it's academia or not, especially when you put for each, for example, position you were a PhD student, you were a postdoc, put basically methods which you learned. I think that is important thing even underneath, because that is sort of shortcut to your know-how that your actually employees are looking for. And I would say I always there is a debate about also strategy, how to design master resume or master CV. But I think the only advice I could give with my all 4 postdocs experience and post academia is that you really develop some master files. So you basically, as you guys said already, you can put everything in your CV, but from this CV, you basically can reuse this CV to create your resume, and by deleting certain informations and creating highlights for certain position you're applying for. So that's what I like to add. And I'm afraid that I have to leave. The only thing is I miss here also soft skills and picture, because a lot you guys showed all the proposals of CVs without picture. That can be plus and can be minus, but a lot of And in terms of job hunters, which I was talking to and interviewers, they actually would like to have a picture of your picture on your CV or resume. So I think that's maybe something to add.
Yeah.
It never harms. It never harms, and I think it's always very in a way visual. A little bit about who you are, because there are now very often happens in photography, personal branding in action. So you have actually a personal photographer which can actually visualize your best qualities in photo. So I think that can be a very playful element, but also still very visually pleasant for your future employee. So that's what I would say I would add. And unfortunately, I have to leave. So I hope that there will be a recording available. But thanks a lot for presentation of the CVs and your input. I think that's we can learn a lot from, I think, US standards and Europe standards. Yes.
Yeah, I really
Thanks.
appreciate you sharing about these points. Yeah, they are really important. Thank you. I'm glad that we could have some of your time. Have a good day. Bye. So we will carry on with the remaining presentation, and then we'll go to the breakout room activities. So I'll share my screen again. Okay, Akriti.
Yeah, so now I'll talk about, I'll give differences between a good versus a bad resume. So first I'll start talking about a good resume. So a good resume is professional and organized. And I'll give an example to you with an image of a good versus a bad resume, where you will be able to better understand the differences. So a good resume is professional and organized. It is concise. It is easy to read, and it is error-free. And it focuses on the skills and the experiences aligned to the role. So like I mentioned in the previous slide, try not to mention an experience that you had 10 years back or 20 years back, where which does not align to the role, because that's just like wasting space on a resume. And again, a bad resume involves a lot of spelling and grammatical mistakes, and that leads to a lot of that leads to a bad impression. So try to avoid that. It has incorrect punctuation. It has unnecessary and distracting graphics. So try not to include a lot of pictures or a lot of big fonts. You need to be consistent with whatever you are using on your resume, and try to use professional fonts. For example, don't include, just as an example, don't include Calibri font. Times New Roman is a good font to include. And since the recruiter or the professor, they don't have a lot of time to go through each student's resume, so it should not be very long. So it should be at max 2 pages long, and don't include unnecessary information unless it somehow you can include like volunteer work or something like that if you have enough space. But try to include the skills that are most relevant, and then if you have some space left, then you can include activities that you have done outside of your career.
Yeah. I also wanted to add one thing on the bad resume. So I had seen one resume from a person who had included, logos of the companies where they had worked. And
Yeah.
and so for every work experience, they had the logo of that company. And they thought it will be catchy in the way that, like, as soon as the person sees the resume, they will see, oh, he worked here. But I found it like to be too much distracting information in that one page.
Yeah.
They had like 3-4 different logos. So that's just one example. Okay, so let's quickly finish up on the good versus bad resume.
Yeah, so this is a good resume where this person has included he has like tailored this resume to the job he's applying. And in the second case, he has under the core competencies section, he has included the relevant skills that are relevant to the job. So that is basically the keywords which are mentioned in the job description or wherever you're planning to apply for your master's or PhD. Then under professional experiences, like I mentioned earlier, he has not just included the company and his position name. He has included his contributions on different projects and whatever benefits or whatever things that he could contribute to. So that is, he has given some details of the professional experience. So that is very important. And in the end, he has included education and other relevant information. So generally, from like when I talk to recruiters, they prefer education and education to be on the top after your description, like after the short summary. But it depends. Maybe if you are higher up in your career and you have a lot of experience, like 10 to 15 years, then it makes more sense to include your professional experience first and then your education at the end. But at this stage where you are just like a beginner, I think it would be better to include the education on the top.
Yeah.
So this is an example of a good resume. And next we have this, which is an example of a bad resume, where it is very generic. For example, under the qualifications, whatever this person has included doesn't give an indication of that particular person. It's a very generic statement that they have included. For example, dedicated and accomplished graduate candidate with a solid academic background in music, including a teacher's license. So that is not very specific to what that, like, you have to, if you have the space, you are supposed to be very specific and showcase your skills that differentiate you from the other people. So you're not supposed to be generic. So this is very generic. So that is the first mistake in this resume. And again, there is a lot of white space. So that is, again, not a good thing, because that shows that you didn't have enough experience. So you have just wasted a lot of space. And again, in terms of the fonts are all right, but in terms of the spacing and like the spacing on towards the right, where there is a lot of white space, it's all over the place. So you need to be consistent with the spacing. So everything needs to align together. Then it gives a good view to the person who is reading your resume. So compared to the previous one, this is a bad resume. So this is not what you want on your resume.
Okay. Shreya.
Hi, I'll be talking about the difference between a good and a bad CV, and most of the points that have been mentioned for the resume will also apply for the CV, but there are a few things that might be a little different. For example, the first one, even in a resume, like Akriti mentioned, you have limited real estate. So suppose you've taken a course, let's say on economics, but you are a STEM student, you might just mention that you've taken this course. But in a CV, and especially if you're applying for a job or a position that might need some economic analysis, it's good that instead of just mentioning it as a course taken, you can actually spell it out. You can spell out what you learned in the course and how it's actually related, how you gained a skill from that course that's actually related to the job that you're applying for. So that is one thing to keep in mind for a CV, to make that link very clear. And it is not very apparent if you just mention that you've taken a course. The second thing is, like Tanita mentioned, you would have like a CV would be like a master document. It would have everything, or at least every relevant thing about you. But that doesn't mean that even for everywhere that you have to submit a CV, that you submit the same CV, because the way you write something also matters. You can write the same sentence for example, applying for a master's or PhD. The same sentence can be written in a different way, highlighting what kind of research you did, what methods you used. And for a job, it can be written in a different way, like, speaking about what exactly you gained, what exact change you made, and how much progress you made. The third thing is that in a CV, or in a CV specifically applying to STEM positions, you might be tempted to kind of elongate only on your technical work, like maybe expand a lot on all the projects you did and all the research you did. But since a CV is a holistic document, you should also have enough space to include things about your soft skills or any volunteer work that you did, or anything that shows that you are a complete person, because both jobs and working in PhD or masters, they require you to communicate with people, to work well with people, to have skills in conflict resolution. So that is something they should definitely add in, but don't over exaggerate. The fourth thing I would say is that um, in a CV or resume, and if you look at what job you're applying for, you can get these keywords or terms that you should add. But one mistake a lot of people make in the CV is that they overuse it. Like suppose you have AI or ML, and then kind of you try to add it to everything that you have done, and that is very easily spotted, and that can kind of really show that you have not done your research and you are just trying to pretend to, expand your CV saying that you have this experience. So the fourth thing would be definitely keep your sentences short and don't overuse any keywords, and be very sure of whatever you've written. It should really reflect on who you are. So yeah, these are some things to keep in mind for a good CV.
Mhm. You want to talk anything about the bad part?
The bad part would be just the opposite of everything. Like for example, only naming the course, the degree, or your university instead of making any links to what you have done. Or like the second point I said, sending out the same CV, sending out only your master CV everywhere, thinking that you have enough material to present. And of course, writing only your technical knowledge, not writing about your soft skills or using a lot of jargon and just to make the uh, document long.
Mhm. Yeah, these are all great points, and I hope our audience is learning from this. So, so now we learned a lot about, at least we covered the basics on what are CV and resumes. And I just wanted to highlight some of the fun facts which I found on this source here, pce4me.com. So, of course, we all know that for a single job position, the recruiters get a lot of applications. So, for example, on an average, one job posting attracts about 250 resumes. And then of all the perfect resumes sent by candidates, only 12% are actually selected for the interviews. And usually there is a software doing that screening, looking for some keywords. Then research has revealed that a hiring manager or a candidate manager on an average spend only 5 to 6 seconds scanning a resume. So you have a very short time to make your impact. And then 80% of the time looking at resumes is spent on the candidate's name, current title, company, and previous title and company. So make sure they are highlighted enough and readable, and use proper fonts, highlight, or whatever is required. And of course, because these recruiters have a lot of resumes, if they find anything which is a basic error, like for example, a typo, it's not readable, they are very quick to reject it. So only 1 in 5 recruiters will reject a resume even before they are done reading it. So, and then 72% of resumes are weeded out before a human ever sees them. So these are, and of course, you don't have to take these numbers by heart, but they give you some approximate sense of what happens. So now we should focus more on how to stand out. And I would like to, of course, all the other speakers have already highlighted some of the basic stuff. I could think of like some additional facts. So for example, using relevant keywords, but avoiding cliches. And, as Shreya also mentioned, like, not repeating them in every single thing you did. Like, let's say you have 3 work experiences, and then in 3 projects, you are always repeating same thing again and again. So you need to like rephrase it or do some, like present something new. And another thing which I really personally think whenever I see any resume or CV is like you always have to connect with big picture. Like tell the numbers, how much did you impact? If possible, quantify that impact. Like for example, you developed a numerical algorithm which reduced the computational time by 50%, by 100%. Give that percentage. Don't just say that, that I developed fast solver algorithms. Then the second point, this is kind of covered already. So show relevant experiences first, and then the specific accomplishments. So like, for example, sometimes we do get confused on, following a chronological order whenever we are applying for a job. And then in that process, sometimes the things which are most relevant, they may get hidden somewhere in the middle of the body of the resume. And while the recruiter was looking for that particular accomplishment to be at the very top, and maybe he just didn't read it. So make sure you don't miss out on that. And yeah, this is also covered in a way that keep your resume CV as short as possible, but also as lengthy as necessary. So, and this is specifically true for CV. So for example, yeah, like I have seen CVs, so being a postdoctoral associate, I receive some of the CVs from students, basically mainly from India. And I see that the person has done only like a bachelor's degree, but they have a 6-page CV, and they have like made it very verbose and like lots of spaces, writing big paragraphs about, things which can be said in just one sentence. They have written like 3-4 lines about that, just to make it like, and after all this work experience, even I don't have a 6-page CV. So it's not that you have to have a 6-page CV to make a good impact. And of course, all other speakers also highlighted this fact. So just wanted to make sure that you, go home with these key messages. So after this whole presentation, now I want to give you a minute and think about what are your top 5 skills. And just like, so now you must be applying for either for graduate school or for job. What are your top 5 skills? Think about it and then comment in the chat box, because later on in the breakout room activities we will be building upon that. So I'll give like 1 minute to everybody, and please start typing your responses.
Skills above this academic achievements and honors,
Okay.
because yeah, these skills are kind of important if you're applying for a PhD. So the professor needs to know that you know these software, so that's how
The
they
kind of work that I've done is mostly in the domains of computational linguistics. And I kind of want to also explore areas which I've not directly work on, say NLP, machine translation, or education below my work experience.
No, see, education is just how easy it is for the person who's looking at your resume to read. You don't have to like miss important points. If you feel that is something that's a skill that you can take ahead, then you don't have to skip it.
you have
Just
water jet spray, so S is capital,
Oh,
whereas other
oh,
things are small, so you need to take care of such things
okay.
as well.
I see.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's why also like, giving another pair of eyes to your resume or CV is really
Yeah.
important, because like these kind of mistakes, you have not done it deliberately, and they are not big mistakes, but they're not good to have, right?
Yeah, and
So,
it'll be difficult for you to notice it because
yeah,
you've worked on this document several times. But it'll be, I think, good to also mention it under the skills section, because it's a lot to read over here. But if you mention it directly under the skills, it'll be easier for the professor, or if you're applying for a job for the
yeah, same thing for projects and competitions also. Like, yeah, rather than the text, you can like write like the bold bullet, book pushing robot at MSRIT competition, like Upkaran 18 MSRIT, and then write that thing. Like that bold line should also include the name of the competition and the institute, and then you write about what you did in just 1 or 2 lines. And same
I
for
see.
the image solving robot also, because like later on it becomes clear where was this competition, what was the name of the competition.
Right.
is like Akriti mentioned, you can have all the skills much above in your CV, even for Deep for that matter, having skills and mentioning all the skills like programming, the softwares that you've used. Uh, you can also include soft skills if you want. I know people do come in like the top two or top. You can have your name and then 2 rows of personal contact information.
I just wanted to say to all the audience, thank you for joining, and connect with us on the LinkedIn. We also have a YouTube channel. And as I was mentioning about the industrial and academic job search cohorts, we have that too. And once you connect on our LinkedIn page, you can message to any of us to get all these links. We also have done other webinar series in the past, and we are still continuing them, and all of them have different focus. So for example, enlightening talk series are with distinguished professors at highly reputed universities. We also have expert insight series with academic and industrial gurus, and empowering webinars on academic and job skills. And we have women only leadership sessions also under the superpowers workshop, so definitely stay connected with us. And our goal is to bring high quality STEM mentorship for all globally and free of cost. And I am happy that we have about 8 to 10 people strong team of volunteers, which is helping us to, host these events. If you also want to participate and contribute in this mission, you can either email Shreya or me and learn more about how you can be a part of our executive team. So that's it for today. Thank you everybody for joining, and we will see you again.
Thanks a lot for your feedbacks. Thanks a lot for organizing this. Yeah.
I'm happy
Thank
that
you,
you
everyone.
could
Yeah, thank you
learn
so much.
something. Okay, have a good night there. Bye.
Bye.